Hey everyone, welcome to another review. As always, my name is Jay. It seems to be I'm doing a lot of reviews lately, but that's fun. I like doing reviews. And today we're going to be talking about the new Chaos Knights Codex out for pre-order today. And as you know, this is brutal. This is a very interesting codex. Now, to sum it up in a nutshell, now I'll go through the codex. There's not a lot to go over the Codex. It's really Imperial Knights with new names. It's Chaos versions of Imperial Knights. There's very small differences between the Chaos and the Imperial Knight versions. Very much so. But what this Codex does is, it's basically the same thing as Imperial Knights. It's a really cool Codex full of really cool models. As a Codex in one dimension, it's going to be fun. If you want to run a whole army of, Chaos Knights, cool. May not be the most competitive. Your opponent has an answered armor. You're going to have a problem. And it's going to be very hard, securing that many objectives with so few models for the number of points. But the models are just as competitive as Imperial Knight Codex, plus soup. And that's the big thing I didn't think about when Imperial Knights first came out, was the soup aspect, and this has a huge, in my opinion, a huge influence on the soup lists. Right now in the meta, Chaos is actually really strong. Chaos has had a resurgence lately, and Chaos soup lists are really strong. And now you have access to a bunch of new models that are basically the equivalent of the nasty Imperial Knight Castellan or the Crusader, the two most taken models from the Imperial Knights Codex in their soup lists. Now you can take equivalents for basically the same points cost in your Chaos lists. That's insane. So if you're going to a competitive tournament and you have friends that play Chaos, prepare for Imperial Knights, or Chaos Knights. It is huge. And that's basically it in a nutshell. If you want to stop watching now, you can, but I'm going to keep going over the entire Codex. I think it's cool. It's a well-written Codex. It's basically Imperial Knights 2.0 with Chaos, but it's the Imperial Knights that have been slightly weakened through the most recent FAQ and chapter approved. So it's in line with the current Imperial Knights Codex, not the original, which is good. Basically, as many people say, there's been kind of like three eras of Warhammer 40k in 8th edition. The first era was pre-Imperial Knights Codex. Second one, post-Imperial Knights Codex, where all of a sudden the soup lists for the competitive meta went berserk. And then the chapter approved era, where it's been toned down slightly. You still see Castellans in almost any Imperial soup list, otherwise you'll see a Crusader. Crusaders are, depending on how you soup them up, they're about 450 points versus the Castellan, which is about 700 points, right? Huge difference, 250 points, but the Castellan is still a firepower source, and it's insane. And the Crusader is insane if you want a slightly lighter version. And in this Codex, the Chaos players now, for the soup, have access to a couple. One's called a Tyrant. Now, the only real big difference between the Chaos Knights version and the Imperial Knights version is that there are not a lot of independent names. There's not a lot of independent houses. There's only a couple houses to choose from. And there's a couple other special rules to make it more chaosy. But basically anything that the Imperial Knights have access to, the Chaos Knights have access to. They have rotate ion shields. They have the ability to, give a relic, which gives a 4-up invulnerable save as opposed to the 5-up invulnerable save. Almost identical stat lines, almost identical guns. Yeah. So, for example, we'll start off with let's start off with the two households. Now, there's two different households in this one. Basically, there's the Infernal Household Ambition and the Iron-classed Household Ambition, depending on which one you want to choose. The Iron-classed Household Ambition is if a model with this ambition made a charge move, was charged or performed a heroic intervention, add 1 to the model's attack characteristic until the end of that turn. And the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapons that the model is equipped with is improved by 1 until the end of the turn. So AP 0 becomes AP 1, AP minus 1. In addition, When an enemy unit fails a morale test within 12 inches, one additional model flees that unit. Cool. The next one is my favorite one. I really like this one. It's really random, but I think it's kind of fun. It makes it very chaosy themed. It is the Infernal Household ambition. Basically, at the start of the movement phase, each model with this ambition can use a demonic surge. If a model uses a demonic surge, it suffers 1 mortal wound, and you roll a d3, and there's a corresponding chart. Otherwise, you can forfeit d3 mortal wounds, and you get to choose which one, which makes more sense. So I'd personally risk that one. So there's a d3 a demonic surge table. Number 1, demonic hunger. Add 2 inches to the model's move characteristic, and add 1 to advanced rolls and charge rolls. That's huge. If you really want to get one of these guys in close combat, that is an awesome one, right? Plus 2-inch movement, plus 1 inch. It really does help. Number 2, demonic fortitude. Add 1 to the model's toughness. That one I don't really think is going to come into play too much, to be honest. If you're shooting las cannons at them, yeah, it will. But they're already toughness 8. So going from 8 to 9, anything that's strength 1, 2, 3, or 4, and 5, and 6 aren't affected at all. Now there's 7. The only one that affects is strength 8 shooting. Because by going from 8 to 9, anything that is strength 1, 2, 3, or 4 will still wound on 6s regardless. Strength 5 will still wound on 5. Strength 6 will still wound on 5. Strength 7 will still wound on 5s. It's strength 8 that shifts from 4s to 5s. Okay. And number 3, demonic power. Select 1 ranged weapon with this model's equipped with. Add 1 to that weapon's strength characteristic and damage characteristic. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. That on top of the equivalent of a Castellan. Nice stuff. I like the movement one myself if it's a close combat oriented model. So, as I said, the big thing about this codex is there's not a lot of independent. There's no knight errant, knight Castellan, knight paladin, knight gallant, knight. You know what I'm saying? It's just a bunch of types, and then you can choose the weapons within that type, and it just adds according points. Now, pretty much all the points line up approximately with the other points. I'm using estimates, but almost everyone lines up most perfectly with the Imperial Knight version of that knight. We'll start with the Wardogs. The Wardogs are the Armigers, right? There's 2 different Armigers, and this one there's Wardogs. They start off base with a heavy stubber, thermal spear, reaper, chain cleaver. They're Armigers, right? Armiger, yes. And then you can make them, if you want, the double autocannon versions, right? The Helverin version, which is the double autocannon, right? Wardog is 172 points. The Warglaive is the original version for 162 points, identical to them. Their strength, their movement is based on their wounds, and they have up to 12 wounds. Movement 14 inches, weapon skill ballistic skill 3 up to start with. Strength 6, toughness 7, 12 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 8, 3 up save. You can take up to... now the only thing is in this one is you can only take 1 in a squadron, I believe. That's the weird thing. No, you can take up to 2 more. Yeah, there you go. Same thing. They are... now they're a vehicle squadron, of course. They have an ion shield, so if I have a vulnerable save, they can explode. Identical in pretty much every way to the Armiger versions. Up next, we have the Despoilers. Now, the Despoilers are the equivalent to the standard Imperial Knights. The Errant, Gallant, Crusader, Paladin. Those are all them. Pretty much identical points costs. I'm pretty sure the Errant version is about 393 points, roughly. As I said, identical to the Errant, roughly late 300, high 300s. The Gallant version's about 350. The Paladin version is about 420. And the Crusader version is about 450. Still, up to 24 wounds. Movement, 12 inches, weapon skill 3 up to start off with. Depending on their number of wounds. Strength 8, toughness 8, 4 attacks, leadership 9, 3 up save. And it comes base with a heavy stubber, Reaper chainsword, and the Thunderstrike gauntlet, Titanic feet. So this is the equivalent of the Gallant, right? The Gallant. And then obviously you can replace the weapon with rapid fire battle cannon, with a Avenger Gatling cannon, with a thermal cannon, making it all the other knights, right? Yeah. And as I said, they line up perfectly with their Imperial Knight brethren. They have Engine of Destruction, though. If this model is equipped with one Reaper Chainsword and one Thunderstrike Gauntlet, add one to its attack characteristic, just like the Gallant. And improve its weapon skill characteristic by 1, so it becomes 2-bow. That's kind of nice. Ion Shield explodes, super heavy walker, it can shoot and charge in a turn, which it fell back. Cool. So as I said, it's very standard stuff. I do see, personally, a Knight Despoiler kitted out, like the Crusader. That's going to be a very common Chaos Soup list edition. I really do think it is. Because for 450 points-ish, you're going to get a killing machine. You can, of course, add, like a rocket pod, an Iron Storm missile pod, Icarus autocannon, which makes even more firepower. Same rules as the Imperial Knights, pretty much. Now, the key is, when you're running a soup list, is obviously have as many command points as possible. So this will work really well if you want to, like, spam out little grumbly guys that'll die quickly, cultists, poxwalkers, demons. Anything cheap and little, and that you can spam a bunch of points. You can use a lot of your command points on these guys and make them awesome. As I said, they have rotate ion shields, 1 per turn, unless it's a tyrant. Then it becomes 3, similar to the Imperial Knights. And, yeah. Next we have the Knight Tyrant. Now this is the equivalent to this is the 2 ones of the larger chassis size, so it is equivalent to the Castellan and the Valiant. Now, it comes base as a Castellan, but instead you can switch to the Valiant, and they're about, the Castellan's about 710 points each, identical to the Castellan, and the Valiant is about 530-ish points, identical to the Valiant. And it comes with the only thing is a slight difference in weapons, is that it has access to a conflagration cannon, and a Thunder Coil Harpoon. Let me see. Sorry, I'm going to double check that. I don't usually use the Valiant. Let me take a look at the Valiant. So the Valiant, there's a slight difference between the Valiant and this one, but it's pretty much identical to the Castellan. I'm comparing 2 codices at the same time. It's kind of fun. So the Valiant, no, same thing. It's the conflagration cannon and the Thunder Coil Harpoon. They're both identical as the Valiant is. Twin Siegebreaker cannons, 48-inch range, heavy 2d3, strength 7, AP -1, d3 damage. And as I said, you can take a Plasma Decimator and a Volcano Lance. Up to you. The Plasma Decimator is the Castellan version. It's, as a standard and supercharge, heavy 2d6 each, and depends on if you want to do strength 7, AP -3, 1 damage, or strength 8, AP -3, 2 damage, mortal wound for every 1 rolled. And as I said, same rules, Ion Shield, 5 up and normal save, dual, Plasma Core Explosion. When this model is destroyed, roll 2d6 before removing it from play. If only one result is a 6, it explodes, and each unit within 2d6 suffers d6 mortal wounds. If both results are 6, it explodes, and each unit within 3d6 suffers d6 mortal wounds. That's hilarious. I wish that would happen. They're kind of fun. It can walk over stuff. As I said, there's strength 8, toughness 8, 28 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 9, 3 up save, and movement 10 inches, weapon skill 4 up, ballistic skill 3 up when starting off at full wounds. So this is the game changer. These 2 models, I'd say, are going to be huge game changers. Now, one note ahead of time. There are 2 sets of new models for this Codex, and then all the other ones, it actually has a Chaos Knight miniatures. Chaos Knights are based on the chassis of Imperial Knights, and to build some variants of Chaos Knights, you will need Imperial Knight kits. To build a Wardog, you will need either an Armiger Helverin or Armiger Warglaive kit. To build a Knight Despoiler, you will need an Imperial Knight Warden kit. To build a Knight Tyrant, you will need either a Knight Castellan or Knight Valiant kit. As I said, same chassis, you just mod them and have fun. So these 2 are the big ones. The Knight Despoiler and the Crusader configuration is going to be very popular in Chaos Soup lists, or the Knight Tyrant, which is going to be the Castellan. You've given Chaos, who is really strong right now with the Soup, a crazy selection of things to add in to make them even more insane. Now we have two new models, the Desecrator and the Rampager. The Rampager is basically a Gallant. Basically a Gallant. The Knight, the only thing that throws me off of the points in the back of the army is that kind of throws me off. Knight Despoiler with 1 Reaper Chainsword and 1 Thunderstrike Gauntlet is 305. But then it says not including war gear. So that, do you actually add the war gear? I guess you do. I'm thinking you do, on top of the 305. So the Knight Desecrator is a new model kit because it doesn't have it's not identical to the chassis of the preceptor, but it's basically a preceptor. Yeah. Knight Desecrator is about 417 points, same as the preceptor. And its movement 12 inches, weapon skill 3 up, ballistic skill 3 up, at full strength 24 wounds, strength 8, toughness 8, 4 attacks, leadership 9, 3 up save. It comes based with a heavy stubber, laser destructor, Reaper chainsword, titanic feet. Now the big difference between the laser destructor and the one that the preceptor has is the preceptor has multiple modes that you can choose from. This one does not, but it's higher strength. So for this one, it's still 60-inch range, heavy D3, but only one mode. Strength 14, AP -4, DD6, and when resolving an attack with this weapon, a wound roll of 6 plus inflicts D3 mortal wounds on top of the wounds that it's going to cause. That's huge. So a little bit less of a variance, the Preceptor isn't used as often in Imperial Knights anyways, and also had a character version of it. But it's cool. I think this could be used. The Knight Desecrator, it's cool. Ion Shield explodes. Taskmaster, reroll 1s to hit for attacks made by models in friendly Questoris Traitorous Wardog units while they're within 6 inches of this model. So this one will work very well with the Wardog units because then you reroll hit rolls of 1, and it's a super heavy walker. You can take a Thunderstrike Gauntlet instead of a Chainsword. Cool. That's cool. Just so I go over them with you guys because I haven't covered them yet. A Reaper Chainsword is strength melee, strength plus 6. So you become strength 14, AP -3, 6 damage. Versus the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, which is strength times 2, so strength 16, AP -4, 6 damage. But then you can, when a vehicle model or monster model is destroyed as a result of an attack made with this weapon, select one enemy unit within 9 inches of the bearer, and roll 1d6 on a 4-up. It suffers D3 mortal wounds. So that's that. And then finally the Knight Rampager. Now the Rampager is basically a Gallant, but it looks cooler. It's like a cooler looking Gallant for enemy points. I'm pretty sure it's about the equivalent of Gallants. So Rampager is base 320 plus the heavy stubber, so 322, and Reaper Chainsword, which is I believe 30. Yep. So 352 and a Thunderstrike Gauntlet. Yeah. So 387. So 387 for a Rampager. Now it is 24 wounds, strength 8, toughness 8, 5 attacks, leadership 9, 3 up save. It's movement 12 inches, weapon skill 2 up, ballistic skill 3 up, so it's a better in close combat than the Gallant, I believe. Let me see here. No. Same. Kind of doesn't make sense to have two of them in the same codex, frankly. Ion Shield explodes friendly rampage when resolving an attack made with a Reaper Chainsword or Thunderstrike Gauntlet by this model, and unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. That's awesome. And it's a super heavy walker, so it can move and shoot even though it left combat. And that's basically it. That's it in a nutshell. That's the Codex. It's basically the Imperial Knights Codex times Chaos, right? It's the evil version of the Imperial Knights Codex, as I mentioned. As a codex as a whole, it's cool. They have a bunch of stratagems. Obviously, the big ones are going to be rotate ion shields, which is the +1 to the invulnerable save. Up to it caps at 4+ as it did in the chapter approved now. 3 CP if it's a I'm trying to think of the new names. A tyrant, 1 if it's not a tyrant. But there's some cool stratagems. And the other thing is, if your army is battle forged, before the battle you can give 1 dreadblade model in each detachment pacts and donations. So this is your leader, essentially. 1 dreadblade model, which I'm pretty sure the dreadblades are anything that is not... I don't know. I don't remember seeing what assigns a dreadblade model. Well, as I said, you can give a dreadblade model in each attachment, packs and donations. To give a model packs and donations, first either select 1 pact from the table or roll 2 randomly, choose. And a pact is something good, donation is something bad. And it's kind of fun, a chaosy thing, pros and cons. And as I said, there's artifacts as well. The most famous ones are going to be like, there's a really fun one called the Teeth That Hunger, and if it doesn't cause damage to anything in that turn, it takes a mortal wound. The biggest one is going to be, if it's an iron-classed household model, the Veil of Medrengard, which gives the +1 to the invulnerable save, so 4 up invulnerable save to a character. You can also take, you can also make 2 of them characters for that artifact as well. Pay extra CP, get multiple characters. The Warlord traits are pretty standard. Number 1, if the warlord is within range of an objective marker, it controls it, so it's a basic objective secured. Number 2, Harbinger of Scrap Code. At the end of each movement phase, roll 1d6 for each enemy vehicle unit within 6 inches of the warlord. On a 4-up, it suffers a mortal wound. Knight Diablos, number 3, 1 to the warlord's attack characteristic. Number 4, Warp Haunted Will. And the warlord can attempt to deny 1 psychic power in your opponent's psychic phase in the same manner as a psyker. In addition, when this warlord would lose a wound as a result, wound in the psychic phase, roll 1d6 on a 5-up, the wound is not lost. That one's good, I like that one. Number 5, Eager for the Kill. When an advance roll or charge roll is made for this warlord, add 1 to the result. In addition, add 1 to the warlord's attack characteristic while they're wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. And number 6, Aura of Terror. When a charge roll is made for an enemy unit within 12 inches, subtract 1 from the result. In addition, when a morale test is taken for an enemy unit within 12 inches, you roll 2 dice and remove the lowest for the test. And that's about it. As I said, it's a really cool codex. It's a chaos equivalent of an Imperial Knights codex. It's basically the same thing with different names. Cooler looking, they look really cool. They're really cool looking models. And they're going to be is a chaos codex in itself. It'll be fun. Won't be the most competitive because most of the competitive armies have a real answer for armor. And if they do, these things will die pretty quickly. And because as you see in the competitive meta, it's not all Imperial Knights. It's a soup list involving Imperial Knights surrounded by a bunch of little dudes to protect it and CP to generate CP that you can spend on the knight. And that's basically going to be the same strategy for the Chaos players. They have yet another group of tools to help them bring a Chaos soup list, bring in the Imperial Knight evil guys, and now they get their own Castellan, they get their own Crusader, they get their own some nasty looking new guys, and they're going to be pretty competitive. This is really, I think this is a game changer. I really do. Not as the Codex, as a utility in a soup-filled meta, essentially, right? This Codex is not overpowered on its own, which is how it's kind of designed, right? It's to emulate the Imperial Knight Codex, which is not overpowered in its own right. Because you can't really generate a lot of command points when you're taking a super heavy walker list. But if you can surround them with Imperial, or in this case Chaos guys, to generate CP, to stay on objective markers, to fulfill other niches that these guys can't, it's going to be really nasty. A really, really nasty combination. And I really do think this is the year of Chaos. Correct me if I'm wrong. Leave comments in the comment section down below. I think the Chaos soup list just got a huge bump. This is a meta changer. I really feel that. You're going to see Chaos players owning tournaments because of the amount of tools they have access to them, plus demons, plus this. crazy. So, what do you think? Leave comments in the comment section down below. Stay tuned for more videos and more reviews. But let's create a discussion in the comment section down below. If you please like the video, comment in the comment section down below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Really does help a lot. And as always, this video is brought to you by my Patreon campaign. Link in the description below if you want to help support my campaign. As you can see, their names go by my head. It's because of them that I can keep doing these reviews. So stay tuned for more reviews. Until the next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting.